All right, everybody, our next break is our special guest break. I'm joined at this time by editor at Sports Collectors Daily, Rich Miller. Hello, Rich. All right, bring you up on the screen here so people can see you. All right, and all right. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your job as editor and Sports Collectors Daily?
We talk about new card products or what's happening with the card companies or what's happening in the auction industry, or if there's some kind of crime going on or whatever it has to be. That we thought there was enough content out there to be able to do this 5 days a week, and so that's it doesn't sound like a lot, but if you multiply it by 52 weeks a year, it's a lot of content. I figured it out one day about a year ago, the number of words that I've kind of estimated that I've written, and not that I'm doing every story, but I'm doing the lion's share of it, and it was a crazy amount.
Yeah, so guys, if you have any questions for Rich and what they're doing over at Sports Collectors Daily, feel free to send those in. I have up the different chat boxes. I can see everything there, so I can see all of those. I'm going to print our list of teams here. All right. So what we have here should be viewable there. There we go. All right, so what we have here, our list of teams. We have Michael with the Diamondbacks, Jason the Athletics, Philip the Braves, Phil with the Orioles, Yanni the Red Sox, Anthony the Cubs, Matthew the White Sox, Sean with the Reds, Tyler the Guardians, Michael the Rockies, Ken with the Tigers, Anthony the Astros, Justin the Royals, Phil with the Angels, Miguel with the Dodgers, Michael the Marlins, Tyler with the Brewers, Joseph with the Twins, Miguel with the Mets, Eli the Yankees, William with the Phillies, Michael with the Pirates, Bernard with the Padres, Anthony the Giants, Michael with the Mariners, Christopher with the Cardinals, Miguel with the Rays, Yanni the Rangers, Justin the Blue Jays, Michael with the Nationals, and Todd gets our non-team cards here. All right, guys, we do have... We're here for a second. So what we have here is 2019 Topps Heritage, or 2009 Topps Heritage High number, which is the 1960 design. 2019 Heritage High, which is the 70 design. 2020 Heritage High, the 71 design. 2021 Heritage and Heritage High, the 72 design. 2024 Heritage High, the 75 design. And 2025 Heritage, the 76 design. And you'll see there's prizes to go with each of those years. Dick Grote won the MVP of the National League in 1960. We have an autographed 8x10. Johnny Bench won MVP in 1970 and 1972. We have an autographed hat with those inscriptions. Vida Blue was the Cy Young Award winner in 1971. We have an 8x10 with a Cy Young inscription there. Gaylord Perry, the 1992 Cy Young Award winner. We have an autographed jersey. Jim Palmer, 1975 AL Cy Young winner. Baseball with 6 inscriptions, including all the years he won the Cy Young. And I don't know what was going on in 76, Rich, but the award winners were guys that I'm not familiar with. So we went down a little bit, and I went Mike Schmidt, who finished third in the National League MVP voting.
That is the most historically relevant and genuinely thought out break that I've ever seen. That's a terrific melding of the vintage and the modern. I'm like fascinated by what's going on here.
I have been called the hardest working man in breaks by a few coworkers, so I'll just say that. All right, we're just gonna start with the oldest year that we have here, and we'll work our way forward. So we're gonna start with the 2009 Heritage High. Now, Rich, you and I were talking a little bit here before the break, and you said you were a vintage set collector. So out of your sets, do you have any that you liked collecting more, that you like the design of the best?
Yeah, well, kind of the older the better. I mean, I love the pre-war stuff, the T206s and the 1933 Diamond Stars set. I have one of those 33, 36 diamonds, or 34, 36 Diamond Stars. But in terms of the post-war era things, I mean, I'm like everybody else. I'm partial to the sets I collected as a kid, which unfortunately is a really long time ago now. You're talking about 75, 76. That's kind of my era. I was not a kid then, but I was still pretty young. So those are kind of my favorites from that 70s era that kind of predates the big card wars that started in 81 when Fleer and Donruss came in, because the 70s it was still all tops, and even though it would have been kind of nice to have a little competition, it's just it was a different time. It was a much simpler time for sure for collecting, because that was the big goal. Everybody wanted to complete a set.
Yeah.
And that was it. If there was some kind of a secondary sidebar set that Topps put out, everybody went crazy because there just wasn't anything else. Don't eat that gum, by the way. Just leave that.
Yeah, we're not eating any gum tonight.
I should say I should dare you to eat it. That's what I should do.
that doesn't even look like advertising.
No, that does not. That looks no better than 1970s gum would right now. That's.
I don't know what kind of gum that is, but it shouldn't be brown. So we're not gonna eat that.
No. I love the 60 design. It was kind of interesting. They went horizontal that year, and I was really glad to see when Topps did the Heritage thing that they didn't try to modernize it. They kept it kind of there's a relic card, Hanley Ramirez.
First hit.
Yeah. But I love the fact that they stayed true to the design. A lot of people don't like the horizontal, but if you're going to do Heritage, you gotta stick with what they did at the time, and they've really stayed true to it. Like those Rookie Star cards are just they're kind of the spitting image of what they did back in 1960. It's too bad Topps didn't, other than Carl Yastrzemski, they didn't really have any terrific rookies back in '60. They sure did a lot of those cards, but he was kind of the only big name in the whole lot.
Yeah, 2009. Is a little rough for rookies too. You're looking at like Goldschmidt, McCutcheon, and after that it's kind of a little iffy. So
Major League Baseball unintentionally also was aligned with Topps in that they didn't put any great rookie cards in. Didn't have any great rookies to go with the rookie cards.
Yeah, that everybody worked together on that one. That was We do have the Topps updates and highlights in here. And there are some rookies in those, I guess. The Geraldo Parra there had a decent career.
The one thing about Heritage, I always say this to people that, I read sometimes in, social media groups, and a lot of it's newer people that are into this, and they buy a box of Heritage and they complain, or a case, and they just complain that they didn't get a big hit. We spent all this money and we only got, we didn't get our money's worth, even close to our money's worth. It's like, well, that's not what Heritage is. Heritage is a product for set builders. It's a product for people who appreciate the nostalgia and the history of the original set. And it's not meant to go hit. There's plenty of products out there where you can go chasing hits. So it's, this is kind of a throwing of the bone to people who still appreciate the history of Topps and the brands behind it. And you can really learn a lot if you're not familiar with some of the vintage just by looking at the Heritage side. So I'm glad they keep doing it. It's a neat product. I wish sometimes it would be a little easier for people to put sets together, but they got the single prints in there, which makes it a little tougher, I guess, to actually complete it, where that wasn't necessarily the case. Although you had high numbers back then, so it was kind of different. But this is, I just, it hurt. I wish people understood, some people that kind of have gotten into this, that this is a different type of product. It's not meant to be for people chasing autographs and relic cards and all that.
Yeah,
there's other products for that. They
throw us a little bit of something there with those real one autographs, and there's usually all the big names, but it's limited in that to rookies and big names. And the real ones, they're a tough pull. They are a tough pull. We haven't really seen any of the bigger rookies here. There's only a few of the bigger rookies in this one. There were some massive autographs. I think Hank Aaron had an autograph in this set as well. So there's definitely some hit potential there. But again, they are really tough pulls.
Ichiro and Roger Maris was an interesting pairing there. That was...
Yeah, it says then and now. I'm not sure. Maris was a home run hitter. Ichiro is just an average guy, really.
Yeah. Putting together a chrome set of those has got to be I'd be interested to know if anybody is actually doing that. That's a major challenge.
Yeah, it would definitely be tough. They're 1 per pack. So
yeah.
A little tough of a find as well. But yeah, I mean, as far as the heritage goes, I collect. I always do like the archives breaks. I like the archives products. I always buy the hobby boxes of those. So I do like the older designs. I guess I'm more partial to that because they do the 3 years with the old,
right.
the middle, and the new. So like I do really like archives, and heritage has always been one of those things where just the cards are nice. And if you're a team collector or a set collector or something like that, the heritage really brings the nostalgia back for those older sets.
Rich Hill, I think he's still pitching.
Probably.
He was as of last year. I'm not sure if he hooked on this year with anybody or not. Maybe not quite yet, but usually somebody gives him a call at some point.
We were just talking the other day about Jamie Moyer. I said, if my wife and I have a son, I'm teaching him to throw left-handed because there is money in left-handed pitching.
Interesting story about Jamie Moyer. I was working as a television sports anchor in South Bend back in 1996, something like that. And they had a charity auction, and Jamie was married to Digger Phelps' daughter. So they had connections with Notre Dame, and they came back to this charity event. And I had donated a T205 kind of a display, a card of Harry Kobaleski, or was it Harry or Stanley Kobaleski, who the stadium is named for, where the South Bend minor league team plays, because he was from that area, and Jamie bid on it and won it. He was sitting just across from me.
I always liked.
And still pitched for another 10 years after that, I think so.
Yeah, I always liked those guys and admire those guys, those lefties that never threw hard, but they got to throw a long time. All right, our box topper here.
There's the box top.
Advertising panel. 3 cards in 1. Let's see here. John Smoltz, Mike Karp, and Jody Garrett. Smoltz for the Cardinals.
In the original, I think those are salesman samples, and they would the top salesman would take those around to the different distributors and whoever else they were trying to market to, and they would show those off in the wintertime, trying to get people to trying to get the businesses to order their cards.
I learned something. I did not know that they had the salesman. I mean, today the salesman just hop on, email everybody, and that's all it takes. So I guess during that time it would have had to take a different approach.
Yeah, a little more personal approach. Yeah, and there was only so much room on the candy counter, I guess, for people to make that decision. Some of those salesman sample panels from the early days can really bring a lot of money. The rare ones are really valuable.
Did they have some of the bigger rookie cards on those? Is that why they fetched?
I can't really think of any salesman sample that had a lot of, because that wasn't really the thought process back then. It was just, rookie cards weren't really a common vernacular at that time. It was just, that was the guy's first card, and nobody really thought much of it. So they just kind of pulled 3, whoever the design team was, pulled 3 cards kind of to showcase what the cards would look like. And sometimes if they had different designs within the set, you'd see the base card and then a subset card and something else. And then the back was just, kind of touting what the benefit would be for somebody to order that for their shop, whether it was a drugstore, grocery store, or just, like I said, a distributor. I'm not sure exactly how that all worked back then, but that was how they did it, and it was just kind of showing the distributor, the store, basically. I think it was mostly geared towards stores, because the back would say, well, you put these on the counter, and every box is, designed to bring more nickels to you. That was kind of the and that was how they marketed it. It sounds crazy today. The volume, the margins must have been really, really small, but they sold a lot of cards.
All right, our next box here, 2019 Heritage High, and this one does have Alonso and Tatis rookies to be chasing in the 2019. A little bit better there. And
there you go, Tatis. Right there. Speak of the devil.
First one.
Brandon Woodruff will be coming back shortly.
Yeah, Tatis, he is something else to watch as a player, too.
By the end of his career, he'll have some phenomenal numbers.
Yeah, without a doubt. Now, I do see over your shoulder there, is that a complete set in the plaque hanging there over your right shoulder? I noticed the adversity card at the bottom.
Yeah, the sheet, the uncut sheet on the other side here, that's a 1976 Topps uncut sheet. And then right over my ear there, on this side, there you go. That's a 19th century Harper's woodcut. They were in magazines back then, just a great old baseball scene. And then on the other side, over here, are all the baseball sets.
Like trying to get a dog to follow you.
Yeah.
Here, boy, over here.
There you go. This 76 uncut sheet over here is, there's a Hank Aaron up in the corner. I don't think you can quite see it, but that was the sheet that had Aaron on it.
Vlad Jr. rookie. Huge contract for Vlad Jr.
Yeah, there you go. Vladdy Jr.
There.
So far, this has been a much more exciting box than the first one.
Yeah, the first one was a little rough. We was hoping to pull one of those, like I said, they had a lot more legendary autos in the 09 set. Just kind of chasing some of those. But in these ones, we have a lot of good rookies, especially the rest of the way here. There's Austin Riley for the Braves as well.
Yep, there you go.
A lot of good rookies in the 19 series. But yeah, the rest of the way here, all the sets have some pretty good rookies throughout. Jimenez kind of didn't pan out like we thought he would. A little down there. That White Sox team didn't really make it. I think we all had high expectations whenever Jimenez and Robert were on the same team.
Well, it looked like they were loaded, didn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Robert made a terrific catch today against the Brewers. It would have been a grand slam for Hoskins, but he brought it in.
Oh, nice. I saw a notification that the White Sox had won, but I didn't see anything about the game. I was watching Paul Skeens pitch batting practice to the Cubs.
Yeah, so, that's a little surprising, huh? Yeah, not a happy day in Pittsburgh, right?
Yeah, that fifth inning did not go well. It was like every time I turned around, I heard the announcer say, "Oh, there goes another one." he's our only
even
player.
Hot prospects have days, I mean, it's part of the game.
Player, we can't have
it's all the guys that bought his. Oh, there you go, Tony Oliva.
Tony Oliva autograph for the Twins.
Nice, very nice.
And Minnesota is going to Joseph in this break. Yeah, those real one autographs are nice cards. So really nice design, and I love how they do that.
Not a red one, but still a Hall of Fame autograph.
That's not? Oh, no, you said red one. I was like, what? There's Monty Grandal Chrome there. I think that's our first Chrome in this one. Oh, there's the Alonso rookie.
There's Alonso.
We pretty much got all the top rookies in this one.
Yeah. You haven't crossing off those checklists.
Yeah. Now, are you still an avid collector? Do you still go put sets together?
Yeah, I am. I don't buy as much as I used to buy because I frankly don't have any room anymore. my office here, this is where I do my work, and this is my memorabilia room. So it's 15 by 10, which is not real big. I have a closet over here that I have some things in, but over the decades of collecting, I just, I'm full. I've got a whole wall back here This goes on for, you know, I guess it's probably another 8 feet with complete sets in it, from all the different sports in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and a few beyond that too. So it's once you get past that, there's a few other places, but I don't have a lot of room to put anything anymore.
Well, we can't let my wife know that running out of room is a reason to stop.
You know, when you buy a storage unit and you have to put stuff in there that you probably need to cut back a little bit.
I'm not there yet. I have a space that we designed for in the basement, and then I filled up a room after that. So I think we have a few other rooms in the house so we can make make some room. But yeah, I definitely feel you there on the running out of room on things. In terms of the Sports Collectors Daily, what would a typical daily, I don't know, like if you view the site every day, what are you typically going to see in terms of updated articles, things?
Yeah, I think, you know, it runs the gamut. Like I said before, I mean, you know, there was a lawsuit we wrote about yesterday. Bob D'Angelo did a story on that, but at the same time, we also did something on a 1928 New York the Baseball Writers Association of America is what it became. But it was a menu from their annual dinner where they passed out awards, and it was just an annual event. That was only the 4th year of it. It's still going now. Over 100 years later. So there was a menu that was consigned to auction with Ruth and Gehrig and you know, just great names from that time period. All these guys were at the dinner and they signed this menu. So we did a story on that because it's just never been seen before. But you know, every day brings something different. There's just so much going on in the hobby now, you know, way more than there was when I started, and we had enough to write about. But I never know when I sit down in the morning. I have a little bit of an idea of what we might do, but then all of a sudden something will hit my inbox that, you know, this is happening, or you know, there was the Topps Industry Conference that took place early in the week, and there was things that were associated with that. So that's the fun of it, I guess, is that you never quite know exactly what the day's going to bring. We do some features, and I know in advance that those are going to go up, but it's every day is a little bit different, and that's kind of what people like, I guess. You know, it's the variety of it, no matter whether you're collecting modern stuff like this or if you're a vintage guy. You know, there's always things happening there. We had a Honus Wagner that sold last weekend, so just anything and everything, and all of it's doing well. The story that we're going to run, I don't think it's quite posted yet, but it'll be shortly. I worked on it today about eBay had their first quarter conference, their earnings report, and their conference call after that. They're obviously a publicly traded company still, so they have to do this. And they cited trading cards as being one of the drivers for the success that they're having. They had a great quarter, and one of the big reasons they spent a big part of their conference call with the investors in eBay talking about how successful they continue to be with trading cards, and how many how this partnership with PSA has really driven growth, where you can have cards graded and immediately have them listed for sale on eBay. I'm sure a lot of the people that are watching this probably have done that. I've done it, where you get a card graded and you can have it sent right to eBay and the auction platform, and you don't touch it after that. And it's just very efficient. But it's been very successful for them. I mean, hundreds of thousands of cards have been sold already on that. So that's kind of a big story today. There's another autograph, Jimmy Price, 68 member of the 68 World Champion Tigers.
I did not know who Jimmy Price was.
Yeah,
he didn't play much in this season from the design there of the 1970.
Oh yeah,
52 games.
Yeah, he was a backup. I think he was a backup to Bill Freehand, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's really interesting with eBay. I mean, I know Fanatics is going with their auctions now as well, with Fanatics Collect. So there's going to be multiple, and of course everybody uses the big cards that always use like the auction houses. So there's so many different, I guess, venues now for people to find a way to sell their cards.
Yeah. Yeah. So much of it didn't exist, even 7, 8 years ago. I mean, there just wasn't a lot of ways to sell. Weren't a lot of ways to sell your cards, and now you've got live streaming, and you've got Facebook groups which have become huge, and people sell on TikTok, I guess, and in addition to eBay, which has been around for a much longer period of time, and you have smaller sites, and dealers have their own websites where they're selling direct single cards, and so yeah, it's been the chase is to find the people to come to your site or come to your platform. That's the key. We've seen so many different businesses that have come into the hobby doing not just sales but service-oriented businesses and things. But the hard thing is to get people to come to your website, or come to your platform or your stream, and that's because it's such a crowded marketplace now. So many people competing for so few ways to make a difference and ways to get your product or your service or your card seen. That's the uphill battle for it.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I mean, we have, the world of breaking has really taken off. Even, I mean, it's been getting bigger and bigger, but then during COVID, I feel like everybody was like, oh, I could be a breaker.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it went nuts.
Well, even breaking, there's so many different ways now that people can sell, different platforms that they can sell. But yeah, I remember, I think it's going back maybe 6, 7 years when the breaking pavilion first came to the National. And that was there were people out there, is it really that big of a deal that the National is devoting this section of the floor to breakers that allowing, and clearly it was, and it's only gotten bigger since then that, they've expanded that, and now with the live streaming, which I think is one of the biggest things that have happened in the last couple of years. So much of that going on now that wasn't even a thought 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I started here, it was either in 2017 or 2018, and there were a handful. I mean, you could probably name the big ones, you could probably count them on one hand, and now, there's so many big breakers out there, just people to do all kinds of business, so it's definitely something that's taken off. I have Jesus Tinoco, and now we did a break maybe about a month ago, another guest break, and we pulled 2 of his autograph in the same box. And we joked about it because we said, "Who is Jesus Tinoco?" And right after we said that, there was an injury in the Marlins. I think it was the Marlins bullpen, and he took over as their closer. And he's been pitching really well for them. So,
on the rare opportunity that the Marlins have to actually close out a victory.
They just need to play the Pirates more. They did really well against the Pirates.
The Rockies may be breaking the record of the White Sox here. The way they're going. Oh, there's another Tony Oliva.
Yeah. Tony slugs the Senators.
A throwback to the 1971 Topps Greatest Moments set. Those are cool.
Mm-hmm. Yep,
yeah,
May
that's
8th,
that's another great. Yeah. The original is tough. Those are tough cards, and there's a lot of Hall of Famers in the set.
Here's our 2021 Heritage. This is the base. We have a Heritage High coming up after this from the same year. And the box topper's not back this time. Eloy Jimenez.
He survived being jostled around there. That's good.
Yeah. It's 4 years ago.
That design brings back memories for me, that 72 Topps design. That
yeah,
I remember buying back then. If you're, for anybody, and I'm sure I don't know how many of your people that are watching this are old enough to remember, but it's they came out in series back then, and when you're a kid, you don't quite understand how it all works. But I kind of figured out that as the year went on, it was tougher and tougher to find new cards because all the stores were carrying first, second, third series cards. And we went out of town. My parents and I went out of town one time, and we went to a liquor store. This is in the Milwaukee area. We went to a liquor store, and they had packs of high number series, which is a 7th series, 72 tops. And I opened it, and I couldn't believe it. I was just like, these are all new. I'm not going to have any of these, but you're a kid, so you can only buy like 1 or 2 packs, and you're out of money. 10 cents a pack. With 3 packs was 30 cents. That was a lot of money. Listen to the old guy ramble on.
No, we love the stories of collectors. That's something I love to hear about. Is how collecting was done, different ways. I was telling somebody just a couple of weeks ago. Whenever I first started collecting, our local VHS video store sold packs, and she had like a glass case with the packs. And every time we rented movies, I would get a couple of packs of cards. And that's how I started building my collection. So I love the stories of how everything works for everybody.
Liquor stores, gas stations, Kmart, they all had cards back then. The vending machines, I tell this story all the time, that there were vending machines. You walked into the Kmarts, which was the big, that was the target of the day. A little lower end, but people didn't know it at the time. But everybody went to Kmart, and they had doors, and then there was a second set of doors to actually go into the building. And between the 2 doors, they had, in the Kmart, which is located near where I grew up, they had a vending machine for baseball cards. It wasn't always there, but one year it was there, and you stuck a nickel in, and you push the lever in and pull the lever back out, and then you'd get like 5 cards for a nickel, or 6 cards. I can't remember what it was. And one year in the spring, I stuck my nickel in. This was in April, and of course, Hank Aaron was chasing Babe Ruth's record, and he was about ready to break it. And the first card that came out when I stuck my nickel in was that famous horizontally designed all-time home run king Hank Aaron card, which was interesting because he hadn't actually broken the record when they designed that card and made it. So they were kind of, Topps was like, yeah, we got to, let's hope nothing happens to Hank and he breaks it. But that was a cool thing to see coming out of the very top card. What are the odds of that it was the #1 card in the series and the best card you could possibly get? There's a relic.
That's a nice one.
Aaron
Judge.
Yeah.
I think Aaron might have been worth a whole lot more had something happened and he not broken
to
have the card that says he did.
Yeah, they would have probably gone back into something. That same year was the year that Topps kind of went with the thought process in the off season that the San Diego Padres were going to move to Washington, and they created the Padres cards as Washington NL. If you know vintage cards, you know that. Washington National League. And then obviously it didn't happen, and the Padres stayed in San Diego. So they stopped at some point and redid all of those as Padres. So now the Washington, they're not super rare, but they do carry a premium for all those. They didn't make, that was the year of Dave Winfield's rookie card, and they didn't make a Winfield, who was number 456 in the set, which is the latter part of it. So apparently they only printed in the early print runs, they only printed maybe the first 2 or 3 series. So Winfield doesn't have a Washington National card, which would have been a really super premium card. But yeah, he was always a San Diego Padres, so there's no variation to chase there. But I can't remember exactly how many there are in the Washington set, but I think it's around 20 different cards.
Yeah, see that? I did not know that.
It was so funny, when you open those as a kid, because it's like I knew the story because I was a huge sports fan, of course, and it's like, Topps, what are you doing? Why they didn't move to Washington? They screwed up. So it was a big joke to all of us who saw that, and we wondered if they were going to fix it, and eventually they did. But if you bought a lot of packs in February and March, you got a lot of Washington Padres.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I never knew those existed.
Yeah. It's a fun little set to collect, and it's not expensive. I think the Cito Gaston card is the most expensive, and probably you can get it for $10.
Yeah, I don't collect a lot of vintage myself. I collect more. The older stuff that I have would be with like Pittsburgh Pirates or Steelers ties, because I mean, in Pittsburgh, that's everything to us. It's the
Well, that was
Pirates and Steelers. So
yeah, that was the golden era for Pittsburgh sports. You had the Pirates, who were great in the early '70s, and then the Steelers and the Steel Curtain, and that was those were the days.
yeah, I have going back. I have pretty much all of the rookie cards from those guys. The only one I don't have is a Clemente. And that's just because I'm cheap. I don't have a Clemente yet. I'll get one eventually, but
you got to start grab a lower grade one just to say you have it.
Yep, that's exactly the plan. My Stargell, I bought it raw. I found a guy that was selling strictly vintage, and I said, I just want a lower grade Stargell to say I have one. He said this one would probably grade like a 3. He sold it to me, and I was like, I'll take that. A Bob Lemon with the 50th anniversary stamp.
That was the other thing back in '73. Topps produced a Clemente card in the first series, and of course he had died New Year's Eve. I don't know if they had actually already, they were past the point where they could change that. There was no mention on the back of his card that he had died, so I assumed that he was put in. It was just too late to change it. But that's kind of interesting that they, you opened a pack of cards in February and March, and there was Roberto Clemente, and I was like, he's dead. It was a little strange, yeah. But now looking back in hindsight, it's kind of nice because you have all those career stats in the back, and he got one last card for, and he had just gotten his 3,000th hit earlier the previous season, just right at the end of the year.
Yeah, legendary too. I mean, the city of Pittsburgh still, the Clemente wall, everything.
Yeah.
Everything Clemente. So we still hold out a lot of respect for Clemente, not just as a player, but he was a great person too.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's Chisholm rookie there. Man, has he turned it on? I don't know if he's just better in New York or if we're just seeing him more because he's not in that Marlins lineup anymore and people are actually paying more attention to him. But yeah, I saw him in an interview recently, and he said they read off his 162 average since he's joined the Yankees, and it's something like 40-some home runs, 40-some steals, and his average is close to 300, and he just goes, yeah, that sounds about right.
Never lacking for confidence. There's another one.
Yeah. Back-to-back packs there for Jazz.
Jeez.
Marlins.
You're going to get doubles. I guess that's not a bad one to have.
Joe Adell, rookie performers there. Yeah. Adell feels like he was a prospect for such a long time. He was supposed to be the next guy with Trout. Never really developed in that. I mean, he's a decent player now. He just never developed into that big star that we were waiting for.
Yeah.
Got Pavin Smith here. He's been playing very well this year for the Diamondbacks.
Diamondbacks need a closer now. These guys are hurt.
Yeah, they started the year with 3 of them. Now they're down to none. That's the position in baseball that's like the craziest turnover. You just see so many closers throughout a season.
Yeah, you don't see too many of the guys who are career closers and come up with a Hall of Fame resume. It's just pitching has changed so much.
Even Molly for Detroit, I think he got a save last night. It was over an inning. It was like 1 1/3. But he started out the year as their closer, and then he blew a save, just one, and they removed him from the closer's rule, and he has a .8 ERA. But the guy that they replaced him with has a .7 ERA. Like, I guess you got to put the higher guy in there.
They don't seem to play matchups quite so much with closers as they do with middle relievers. Just kind of throw them out there. But it's such a tenuous thing. Yeah, I mean, you look at Devin Williams, traded from the Brewers, where he was just absolutely the best in the business. Playoffs notwithstanding, he was just almost unhittable. And then he goes to the Yankees, and he's really struggled.
Yeah, I think he's coming back from an injury too. He just doesn't have everything. Was it a back injury? I think he had.
Yeah, he's always had back trouble. Yeah.
Yeah, and he just hasn't been.
There's Clemente's 3,000 hit. Yeah.
Yeah, he just hasn't really been what they had hoped for him to be. luckily for them, though, they're is it Weaver that's been closing for them? That's been pitching really well. They still able to hold that down.
Well, Nestor Cortez is hurt, so that trade has kind of been a wash at this point.
Now, with your, do you remember what the first set you finished was?
The first set I finished, I don't know. I don't remember which one I finished first. I would say it was probably like the 75 set. Because I bought a lot of cards that year. I actually got a box for my birthday when I was a kid. I got a box, and so that was, was it over half the set? Yeah, it was over half the set at that time. So, and I probably had already collected some cards. So, but back then, it was different because there weren't really any. There were shows, but boy, they were really scarce. They were really sparse, and I went to one show I think when I was a kid, and otherwise, I didn't go to another one until I was in high school. When they first started in the late '70s to kind of. You'd see shows become more prevalent, and they were still mostly in the bigger cities. You had to travel a little bit to get there, unless you happen to live in a big city. But it was most of the trading and stuff was done by mail. There were the ads in the back of the hobby publications, and unless you knew somebody in your town, there's a relic, Nick Senzel. But unless you knew somebody in your town, which I kind of did, but we didn't really do a lot of trading. I knew a few guys. They were older guys. They were kind of older than me, but I think a lot of it was just, you got the hobby publications, and it was a much slower pace of life, but it was also a lot slower to get things done. But that's just how you did it, because there was no internet or anything. So some guy would write in, and I've got duplicates of these sets, and here's my list, and here's what I need. So you'd mail back and forth, and that's probably how I completed some of those when I was younger. There's a Churio rookie.
Yeah, that's a nice one for the box topper there.
Very nice.
Jackson Churio rookie. Now, since you're a fan of the pre-war stuff, have you built some Allen and Ginter sets? Do you do some Allen and Ginter stuff or not?
No, I don't. I've got a few of the modern cards, and I don't have any of the vintage Allen and Ginter either. That's one set I've thought about trying to chase, but I just haven't done it. The modern Ginter, I bought a few things here and there, but just nothing major. But that was a really the 19th century set is very, very interesting, and it's become really expensive. That's one of the things that probably should have jumped on earlier. Yamamoto rookie.
Yeah, Ginter's what got my wife into collecting, because she liked all the crazy stuff off the side. So whenever I'd buy boxes, she always was like, "Do they have the Allen and Ginter?" So she likes those. I think that was I've been collecting since I was old enough to remember, and I think that's the first time I put sets together was Allen and Ginter 2017 and 18. So.
I'm of the era where, we were complete set builders, and that was kind of what everybody did before the big explosion where now you have, 20, 30, 40 products every year. It was, one or two products. And so that was kind of my gene, was to build the set. So even in the later years, in the 2010s and 2000s, I was still building, the Topps baseball set every year. And I was kind of obsessed with getting all the inserts and all the various. So, but it just got to be so crazy when they do these, Brett Favre on a tractor was one of the inserts that Topps did. And that was kind of the point where I said, okay, if they're going to super short print some of this stuff where you have to pay $50, $100, $200 to get one of them, I'm out, So I stopped being quite so obsessive about the modern stuff and just kind of moved. They probably did me a favor by doing that. But it's.
I can imagine that's the fine line that the card companies have to walk, because they have to give collectors a chase, especially in today's age. Yeah. Everybody wants something that they can chase and turn around and flip for good money. Yeah. At the same time, they have to keep a certain aspect of it for the people that just want to collect the sets.
Right. Yep.
They're not.
Yeah, it's very much become a chase-oriented hobby, and it's very exciting when somebody pulls a huge card. Obviously, I'm sure you guys have seen that in your breaks and stuff, but it's it's kind of almost a lottery kind of situation. But
Yeah, it has turned into that quite a bit. It's the pick your team breaks. They tend to be more people that collect certain teams.
hey, there you go.
Oh, there's a nice
Wow, look at that autograph right behind Skeens.
Donnie Rafaela, the Red Sox. Yanni has Boston in this one. Yeah, it's the big hits are fun and everything, but like whenever we run these, like a Heritage pick your team or a Top Series 1, 2 or update pick your team, it's more so people that are collecting team cards. So like we don't have to hit something huge to make everybody happy. We just have to get their cards.
I love team collectors. I mean, those are the true collectors, the guys that are player collectors or team collectors, and they just want to get as many different cards of their team as they possibly can. I think it's a noble thing to do, especially now with so many products out there. But that's just a pure way to collect. I like this team. I want as many cards as I can get. It's just fun. I love guys who do that. I think that's great. I have tremendous respect for people that are in it for those reasons.
Yeah, it's
a more budget-friendly way to do it, even though there's a lot of cards out there. I mean, you can still have a lot. I always tell people, too, you go to shows and everybody talks about the big money and the big cards, but that's the one great thing still about this hobby is that you can go to a card show with $20, and if your tastes are simple, you can kill all kinds of time going through dime and quarter and nickel. Some guys sell nickel cards out of those boxes, and you can go through there and spend an hour spending your $20 just on dime and quarter and boxes that have all kinds of those cards, and they're at every show. So that's the one thing. No matter what budget you have, as long as you don't have these crazy expectations or desires to buy the really expensive stuff, it's still very much a hobby that is affordable. You have to keep your expectations of what you're going to do, somewhat limited. I always say too, when you're growing up, you're like, oh, I want to get one of every card that's ever been produced. That was what everybody talked about years ago. Obviously, that's just a crazy notion now, but but that's what I say. You're not gonna get everything anyway, so stop complaining and just buy the stuff like this that you can afford and that's fun. You can't take it with you anyway. So it's like, have you ever seen a hearse driving down the road with a U-Haul attached to it? It's someday it's gonna all belong to somebody else if they don't throw it away.
Yeah, I agree completely there with the going to shows. Like we have one this weekend that's local, and there's going to be a lot of people there. And a thing for me is I hate people that grade modern base cards. Like I all my viewers know this. Like it just bothers me if I go to.
It's why you have to wait now 2 months or 3 months to get your cards back from the grading companies.
Yeah, and like I saw somebody complaining on social media that I think it was PSA took a picture of a card they graded for them. And the person that graded it, their fingers were there. So, like, you see this on the thing. And they're like, oh, it's so terrible. And then you look, and, like, you could see the bottom of the card, and you could see up here. And it was a 2024 Select Travis Kelce card. Why are you grading that?
Why? Why?
It's a 12-year base card. Why are
Not
you grading
everything
that?
has to be graded. Yeah.
That's why we're so backed up with the grading. Like, don't
everything
grade
that comes out of a pack these days should be, I'm not going to say it should be a gem mint 10, but it should be mint enough for anybody. It's the quality control is much, much better than it was when we were pulling off-center cards out of packs. I mean, it still happens. It still happens, but not nearly to the degree of what it was back quite a few years ago.
Yeah, for me, it was always, whenever I had a card that I wanted that was, a little bit older, like Griffey 89s, there was a lot of fakes out there. I don't have a Jordan rookie, but I will someday. But like, there's so many fakes. out there. It's like whenever you get one that's graded by one of the big companies, and you have that, you have that sense there that all right, I'm getting something that's legit. That's what I always felt grading was for. But now everybody's like,
Yeah.
no, you got to get that
Yeah.
card graded. It'll sell for more.
Yeah.
You don't have to get it all.
Yeah,
graded.
I don't. I'm not anti-grading, but I don't. The vast majority of the sets that you see behind me here is, they're not graded, and they're back, 50, 60-year-old sets. But I trust my own judgment in terms of being able to tell when something's been altered. But when I do need a card for a set that's expensive, like a Mantle or another big pricey Hall of Fame rookie card or something, I will buy a graded card just because I want to make sure that another set of eyes looks at it and says it hasn't been altered, it hasn't been recolored, it's not been trimmed. Those are the situations where it's really, really valuable. But I guess if you're collecting slabs, you're going to have a lot less room for cards. That's one thing, but at least you'll be well organized and you'll be able to stack them one on top of the other.
Yeah, I'm all for people collecting whatever they want to collect. It's not for me. Whenever I see the
There's a sparkly one. Oh,
yeah, the DJ Hertz there, the blue sparkle rookie for the Nationals.
another blue insert.
Yep, Bryson Stott. Nice Chase Young there. But so whenever I go to like the shows like this weekend, there's going to be a lot of tables that are just like modern stuff, like downtowns, stuff like that graded, and I usually skip over those because that's not really my cup of tea. But I mean, that's where a lot of the big money cards are from these products,
I thought that card, that Robin Young card, that was interesting. Heritage this year did a kind of an alternative design. I like that where they kind of go away from the design that was 76 and say this is sort of a, what if kind of design. I think that was kind of a cool concept that they did.
I think that's what they named it, was the Reimagined.
Reimagined, right. Yep.
New design. Well, there's nice.
Oh, there's a good one.
Blue James Wood.
Not numbered, I don't think. Are those blue?
No. He's had an incredible start to the year. I didn't realize how big he was until I saw him standing next to some other players. Because I knew he was a top prospect, but I didn't really do a deep dive onto him. And then, man, he's a big guy. There's a nice card. Cody Bellinger out of 25.
25, wow.
Yeah, 1325. Got an orange refractor there. Bellinger for the Yankees.
Whoever has the Yankees will be happy with that one.
Mm-hmm. John Harvey Kellogg.
Who later produced baseball cards. His company did. From 1970 to 1983. Those were some of my favorites, the Kellogg's cards, and still are. I'd get up in the morning and you pour yourself a bowl of Frosted Flakes and grab the card out of the box, and then you could send in, so you wouldn't bug your mom to buy hundreds of boxes of cereal. You could take $2 and a couple of box tops, and they'd send you the set.
Oh, that's neat.
Except for 1971, they did not do that. You had to pull those all out of the individual boxes of cereal. That's why they're a lot more expensive today.
Another James Wood.
There's another James Wood right behind Aaron Judge. 76. Now the Heritage wrappers this year, obviously they're mimicking the original 76 Topps wrapper design, which was almost identical to the 74 Topps wrapper. So they kind of, not a lot of creativity going on at Topps there in those mid-70s wrapper designs.
Now there's too much creativity from everybody. They have, like you were saying, like 50 sets. So it's, you got to get everything out.
Yeah.
Nick Sogard there.
I love the fact, though, that they've really, Heritage, every time I see somebody break a box of those, and there's so many little things that they've done that you don't really know until you kind of look deeper into the set, that, the cover on the box, I think is it Jackson Holiday or is it Gunnar Henderson? I think it might be Henderson. but he's wearing the Brooks Robinson patch on his sleeve. And Robinson, I think, was on the cover of the 76 box. He's not identified, but I thought that was really a unique, interesting twist. And I would assume that maybe somebody at Topps, that wasn't by accident that they showed that with the patch on him.
Yeah, see, that's something that I never pay close enough attention to details like that. So it's something that I would have never noticed.
Even with the
arm.
numbering and the little quirks that they've done.
That's awesome though that they put that into the even the package design.
That's why Heritage is kind of a fun set, because they, if you really study the set, and you'll see people online kind of pointing those things out that they've done with kind of an eye on what Topps was doing, not just the design, but there's a lot of little things that they've put into those cards that are kind of a throwback, a little nod to what the original, something that was in the original set. The only thing missing, I think, is the bubblegum blowing championship. We had Kurt Bavakwa on the 76 set, who won the 1975 bubblegum blowing contest that was sponsored by Topps. And he got his own card in 76, somebody actually measuring the bubble. That's a classic. I don't think they did. I can't remember what was on the checklist, if they did anything close to that, but there was no bubblegum blowing contest last year. So probably not.
Still a really neat idea there. All right.
Somebody in the audience may know.
We do have these prizes here. Let's go back over those. Let's see. The 1960 MVP here. We had Dick Groat. I'm going to jump us over to the other screen so you guys can see it better.
Dick Groat was also a tremendous basketball player at Duke.
Yeah, he did Pitt basketball games until recently here on the radio. What am I looking for? There it is. Dick Groat, autographed 8x10. Next up, we have the Gaylord Perry, the Hall of Fame 91 inscription here. I'll find it there eventually. JSA certified. 71 Cy Young winner, Vita Blue, 8x10.
Nice.
Third in the National League MVP voting in 76.
Yeah, there you go.
Back in jersey.
Classic jersey, too, those baby blues with the burgundy.
Yeah, for sure. This one I really like. Johnny Bench autographed hat with MVP 70 and 72 inscription.
Yeah, nice.
That's a nice one. And we're going to get a Jim Palmer autographed baseball. There's a lot of inscriptions on this one. There's Hall of Fame 90 on that side. We've got No 8/15/69 down there. We've got 74, 75, 76 AL Cy Young, and 66, 70, and 83 World Series champs. Both inscriptions on that side.
That's great. Yeah, that's awesome.
And here we have 2.86 ERA and 2,212 strikeouts. So 6 inscriptions there.
Wow, that's phenomenal.
Yeah, that's a really nice one there from Palmer. It is PSA certified as well.
Right. Jim Palmer's nickname was Cakes, because every day that he pitched, he'd have pancakes for breakfast.
I like that. Let's jump over to our monitor here. All right, there are the names. So we're going to take our top 6. We'll each get a prize here. It's going to be Anthony P, Miguel, Todd. Miguel gets 2 prizes, Philip K, and Anthony R.
Way to go, Miguel.
All right, and I want to make sure I get this in the right order here. I know Dick Groat, 8x10. Don't forget. Bench hat, Vita Blue, Gaylord Perry. Now, you said you were in the Colorado area. Did you grow up there?
Not Colorado, no. I grew up in Wisconsin.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So you're a big Hank Aaron fan then?
Yeah, I actually saw Aaron play his last couple of years with the Brewers. Obviously, he was kind of a shell of his former self, but it was still a thrill just to see him in person. You know, he'd meant so much to Milwaukee back in the uh, 50s with the Braves and early 60s before they moved to Atlanta. So when he came back, that was such a big deal. People were so thrilled. And the Brewers had been so bad. So they kind of, and it continued to be bad, unfortunately, while he was still there and a couple of years after that. But he just, at least it brought a little life back to the franchise. And he was a drawing card. You know, people wanted to see him before he retired. So it was, it was pretty cool to see him come back, and guys like me who weren't around when he was playing for the Braves actually got to see him play. And it was he still, you know, he hit his 755th home run at Milwaukee County Stadium, and then he also hit a big home run at I think it was against the Red Sox. This was back when the Brewers were in the American League. Hit a big home run at Fenway Park to win a game. So he had a few good moments in him yet, even though, you know, he was a DH, and you know, his best days were behind him. But he still once in a while you'd have a big moment.
That's phenomenal. Like for me, I mean, growing up, you know, I got to see McGuire at Three Rivers or PNC Park. I got to see Bagwell, Biggio. Like I got to see some Hall of Famers, but I didn't get to see those guys. Like that's
Yeah,
different.
yeah. It was a pretty neat era. You know, we talked about some of the cards you broke there with 70s guys in there, but I remember going to the 74 All-Star game, and you think back of all the great players that were there on the field that day that I saw them. I'm not old enough. I wish I could remember more about it, but I remember sitting in the stands and watching, you know, Dave Parker and Lou Brock and, you know, Schmidt and all those guys that, you know, it was just really a cool time with a lot of really good players.
Yeah, I think that's something that Topps has done very well. Is Major League Baseball with the video game world, and Topps is now paired
Yeah,
up with it too. How they bring those guys back for the younger generation. You know, you can play as those guys. You can see what they did. You can learn about them. They have the Negro League storylines where you can learn about those. So there's a lot of cool stuff where like you have to relive moments of players and different things like that in the video games. It's really teaching, you know, the younger generation about how great those guys were and things that they did that you don't see every day.
yeah. No sport embraces its history like baseball. I don't think there's any debate about that. I think it's really neat that they've really kind of turned that up in recent years too. You know, we saw the moment a couple of years ago when Willie Mays walked out, and it's a little bit sad to see him kind of as they, you know, have a little trouble walking and things like that. But still, you know, if it gets a couple people to, you know, look up their careers who maybe are younger and don't remember, and that's I think that's a neat thing. Is it does connect the generations. You know, that's baseball's thing. Is it's kind of nostalgic, and you know, kids growing up going to the ballpark with their dad and collecting cards with their dad, and then now their dads and they're collecting with their kids. So that's really it's one thing that's kind of unique to baseball. There's certainly a lot of football and basketball and hockey history, but baseball is still the one that really does it best, I think.
Yeah, and I think the with people getting bigger and stronger and faster in the modern generations, you know, a lot of records are getting broken and stuff. But there's so much history in baseball that a lot of those records are just so hard, and it's going to take so long for a player to break them. You know, you've got to
Yeah,
play a good
yeah.
20 years to break some of those records. They're not.
I think the guys who struck out 5,000 batters are probably safe. The Ryans and those guys. Yeah, it's Randy Johnson, but and the guys that, you know, won 20 games 6, 7, 8 times in their careers. That's probably not going to happen again. It's
No,
just
that it's
it's a 5, 6 inning game for a starting pitcher now.
oh, absolutely, and bullpens aren't strong. I mean, how many
Yeah,
bullpens across the league have terrible ERAs? So those guys can leave with a win and get nothing out of it. So it's
yeah.
yeah, absolutely. Like the 9 inning, 20 strikeouts. I don't think we're gonna see many of those. If we
No,
see
no.
another one, I would be shocked. I would be kind of shocked to see another one. There's just nobody does that anymore. So and then again, like they're gonna have to play 20 plus years to break some of those records, and
Yeah,
I don't know
yeah.
if that's how players view it anymore.
I think players are probably built better to do that, but pitchers, especially with the arm injuries. So many guys having Tommy John surgery, and it's a hard game to, even as it's become, more athletic dominated players, it's still going to be hard to break some of those longevity records, just with how the game's played, the platooning, and all that kind of stuff. So it's, but I have to say, I'm kind of a little bit of a old school purist when it comes to baseball, but I like the fact that they changed the rules a little bit a couple of years ago and sped up the game. I think I'm watching more baseball now than I ever have, just because I know it's not going to, with rare exception, the games are going to move along. It's, you're not going to get bored watching the pitcher, come off the mound 3 times and the batter adjusting his glove 3 times. And, it's, I think for the most part, I think the rule changes have been good. I think it's, if I'm watching more baseball as a serious fan, I think the people that maybe aren't quite as serious are probably watching more baseball too, because it's just less, it's it's less time consuming, it's less tedious, and a little bit more exciting. And we live in a world where everything's faster now, and we expect things to happen quickly. So it's, we're just that's baseball is just kind of a reflection of what we live in now.
Yeah, you do hear a lot of people complain like, I don't want them to switch stuff up. Me, I'm all for robotic umps. I know a
Yeah,
lot of
yeah,
people.
oh, absolutely, yeah.
I hate watching a catcher frame a pitch that I can see on TV is 6 inches
Yeah.
out of the zone, and the umpire can't see it because it's way too fast. There's no way the umpire saw it. It's like I can't blame the umpire for not calling it right, but like we want those calls right. We want to see guys hit. We don't need to see the multiple 200 strikeout guys. We want to see guys hit.
The technology in there, and now in football, they're going to go with the electronic measurements for first down markers, which is way overdue. I mean, that certainly should come in a couple of years ago.
They didn't put the chip in for spotting yet, but it's in to measure the first downs. So the chain gang will be there, but they're not going to be used. They have a chip, I guess, in the chain or something to show where the ball should be, but they don't have a chip in the ball yet to show. I mean, they're a step away. They just need that one more chip in the ball. I mean, technically, you only need 2. You need 1 on each end to see if the ball passes that marker.
Yeah.
You could just ping it and boom, if it's a first down. They don't even have to care. They can just, the ref gets a buzz from the chip. Hey, it's a first down. We're good.
Baby steps.
We're close.
Baby steps,
We're close. Right? The prizes here: Anthony with the Johnny Bench hat, Miguel the Jim Palmer baseball, Todd the Mike Schmidt jersey, Miguel again with the Vida Blue 8x10, Philip the Gaylord Perry jersey, and Anthony R with the Dick Grote 8x10. Back here. All right. Once again, Rich, I want to thank you for joining me tonight. It was a lot of fun. Love learning about the different stuff there. And again, if you want to tell everybody about Sports Collectors Daily again, where they can find it, what they can do with it, feel free.
Yeah, absolutely. The big thing I always tell people is that it's free. So you can't beat the cost. We publish fresh stories Monday through Friday. So it's just if you want to find out what's going on in the hobby, whether you collect newer cards or you're interested in the business aspect of what's going on, or if you're a memorabilia guy, or you just want to find out what's happening with the card companies, anything, chances are we've covered it. There are 19,000 stories in our archive. Everything's free. So if there's a particular set you're wondering about, chances are we've written at least a couple stories about it, or about your favorite player and their best cards. Or it's a pretty great resource, if I do say so myself. After all these years, there's just no other place where you can go and find out as much information about what's happened in the hobby and the history of it and everything else. So it's sportscollectorsdaily.com. I'm on X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it, at Sports Collector. I am on Instagram. We don't do a lot of stuff there, but we are there. Again, it's Sports Collectors Daily on Instagram. And so, just happy to have anybody that wants to come by, whether you come by once a week, once a day, or 10 times a day. Greatly appreciated, and we're happy to answer any questions that people have, or if they just are wondering where they can find something, maybe they can't find it on our website. We also have something that's kind of interesting. We do a most watched on eBay. We have tons of pages, so whether you collect baseball, basketball, football, certain players, the big stars, we have all of those little, they're usually a small little bit of text, but then we have a live list of the most watched auctions for that particular player or that particular sport, rookie cards, whatever you want to look at. And it's just kind of an interesting snapshot of what the hottest cards are in the hobby on the market at that particular time. So a lot of people use that, and it's just kind of a neat thing that you can look at again anytime, because the feeds are automatically updated 24/7. We don't do the updating; it's just an automatic feed that we get from eBay as the people watch a certain card. If there are 200 people watching this card or 100 people watching this card, it's all on a list, and it's easy to navigate through it. So, but yeah, thanks for having me on, and had a lot of fun going back in time and looking through some of the new heritage, or not new heritage stuff, a little bit of new stuff, but all the other brands, and kicking it back. So thanks again for having me on.
Thank you. See you. All right. That's going to do it for that break, everybody. Again, thank you all for joining me there. That was fun. Got to learn a little bit about how the hobby worked throughout the 70s there for us. And yeah, definitely things have changed. You wouldn't be watching me break, obviously, in the 70s, but it was a whole lot different in the access, the amount of card shops around, the amount of card shows, just everything was different. So fun to learn about that kind of thing. We'll get this one uploaded here. I'll send out the email, and I'll take a look at what all the orders that came in here. I know some of you said some breaks have filled. We'll run those in the order they filled. Let me take a look at those. Thanks again, everybody.